We did make it through the year. So almost, we got like 18. Who's counting? 18 or 19 days left.
I don't know. I'm only counting down to Christmas. I'm surprised that it's not in my background. We have like 4 different advent calendars, 5 different places where you can press a button to go to the countdown. It's very crazy.
I used to do the advent calendars that had the little chocolates.
Yeah.
And now that I live not at my parents' house, I don't get those anymore. So
my kids have the Kinder one. I want that big fancy one that has gadgets. Like you get a new gadget every day. That'd be fun.
According to my advent calendar, there's the chocolate one. There's 2 days.
Hey everybody, it's Mike Eastep. And now a big change for me is I've now
who's
from
that?
the east side of the world to helping Black Point build this community. I'll share.
That's you, Mary.
First thing
Mary, that's fantastic.
Who's Mike?
I didn't know Mary was Mike Eastep.
No, you know what? I had Rejection Con on mute behind a screen, and when it switched to another session, it came up. I was like,
It's okay. It's okay. We'll get started here in like a few minutes.
We can keep talking about. I do beer advent calendars, create my own, and well, for other people. And you 1 beer a day, it gets a lot. After a couple of days, you're like, you know what? I don't know. I think I'm all set with it.
I thought you were about to say 1 beer a day keeps the doctor away, and then you immediately became Kelvin's best friend.
I mean, technically, I am sick right now, so I wouldn't put that PSA out there that it keeps the doctor away, because I can't confirm or deny that.
It's because you didn't drink enough of them. That is the problem.
Probably.
That's why you got sick. It was only because you only had 1 beer.
Yeah, I need 2 a day.
alcohol kills germs.
Yeah, inside and outside your body.
This is why after every event, nobody ever gets sick. Because alcohol kills the germs. Weird.
Yeah, we're sick during the event, but afterwards we're A-okay. My favorite vacation is cruising, like actually going on a cruise ship. It's scientific. You can eat, sleep, and drink in any order, any combination, any time of day, and you're not going to get judged for it. I love cruising so much. I don't even like getting off the boat. It's like, what do you mean we have to do excursions? So I'm on the excursion. I'm on a big boat in the middle of the ocean, having a blast. So
as soon as I can't see land at some point around me, I get way too nervous. I don't know, even on a boat, I'd be like, but what if?
What if? Fun fact about Josh, he is incredibly motion sick all the time, to the extent that if he gets in an elevator, he'll get motion sickness. Like he'll start getting vertigo in an elevator going up and down.
Wow.
So
That's horrible.
Yeah.
That's the least fun fact of fun facts ever. I don't want that fun fact at all.
So I'm the road warrior and he's not. He's not.
Unfun fact.
Unfun fact, yeah. We'll get started in 1 or 2 minutes.
Big fun fact funner.
One fun fact funner.
Fake fun.
I could create some fun facts. See, but I have like a few that are just like in the pockets. They're boring now because I just bring them out too much. It's like, oh, I'm a triplet. Everyone's like, oh my God, no way. I'm like, it's not cool. It's not as cool as it sounds. Trust me. We're all boys too. So it's like, we have to hate each other. It's like, that's just how it is. We compete at everything. We have to hate each other. And, we're kind of growing out of it now that we're, little adults. We're all 28 or 27, so we're almost there. But
so
if you were Game of Thrones characters, you'd be like trying to steal each other's identities and like tank your empires.
Oh yeah, I'm doing great, Kelvin. I'm doing better now that I know that I've talked with my favorite. I hope Dutch. I hope you're Dutch. I don't know. You're in Europe somewhere, okay? Netherlands. I think the Netherlands. I think we talked about this, but you all ready to get started? I can get us started.
Yeah.
Sweet. Everyone who's here, thanks so much for being a part of this. Not only if you're on this panel with me, but also if you're watching. For folks who are watching, I personally love interaction. So if you have questions for any of the guests, the wonderful people here, or if you just have a question about something we're not talking about, I don't know, it doesn't matter. I love when that happens. And honestly, some of the most valuable conversation you'll ever have and the things you'll get out of joining any webinar like this is if you ask questions that are relevant to yourself. So I would highly, highly encourage that. And today what we're going to talk about is like a 2023 year in review. Everyone here is a part of the MSP industry. If you're watching, I assume you are as well. If not, you're about to learn maybe some of the secrets that you shouldn't know, and maybe some of the secrets that you should know about the MSP industry. I don't know. And what to expect for 2024. So whether that's events, whether that's any of the wonderful companies we all work at, or anything at all, you'll figure out what to expect. So with that, let's start introducing some people. Mary, would you like to introduce yourself? I don't think I could do it justice.
I would love to introduce myself. My name is Mary Signorelli. I've been in the channel since 2015, teaching people along the way, and 20 years before that. So education is just a huge part of who I am and what I do for the channel. So it's a blast to be here. And yeah, just excited. I can see of the 4 guests that we have here, I've worked with 2 of them. So you know, there's always time, Des. We can work together in the future.
It's gonna happen.
But I think we've got a pretty good alliance, especially when we're on the road, just taking care of each other and making sure that everybody's included. Definitely a very inclusive group.
Awesome. And Andrea,
All
who are
right.
you? Explain to the folks, the people asking in the crowd. They want to know who you are.
They're all clamoring to know. My name is Andrea Ayala. I am the senior community manager at ScalePad. I've been in the channel for about a little over 8 years. I've had the opportunity to work with all of the ladies on this, and even Connor too. We can include Connor because we got to work together a little bit. And started my career out in like a small accounts billing team, and kind of grew knowledge of MSP space and partners and how they work, and have been in channel focused, channel engagement kind of roles, and really excited at what we're doing at ScalePad, and lots of fun things coming down the pipe. But yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. I remember meeting you when you were at Gradient.
Yes.
And we're still a partner of Gradient today. So I
Well,
guess you
it's
have
me,
worked
right?
with everyone.
All because of me.
All because of you,
And my
actually. Yeah.
and my charmingness.
You strong-armed us into it. I promise. And then Ashley, I've had the pleasure of knowing you for quite some time. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I have been in the channel since 2009. I started at an MSP, progressed into being a bit more of a consultant, and then moved into the vendor space. I was at Avic most of that time, for about 5 years almost, and then I worked with both Mary and Andrea at Gradient, and I would say that that year was probably one that I learned the most and met some of the most interesting people too, because honestly, if I were to pick like 2 people who I believe could be plopped into any role in any company, regardless of the requirements needed of them, like those are 2 of them there, right? So Colin hired fantastic people, and I am so grateful that I got to meet all of them. I'm at Roost now. You know, I think that's a culmination of everything that my career brought me through. Like when I was at the MSP, I was focused on process automation. And when I was a consultant, I was focusing on maximizing PSA usage. And even at Gradient, it was a problem near and dear to my heart from the, you know, like the automating complex processes. And then throughout all of that, I was using tools that helped me integrate things together. And now I'm kind of like squarely into the tool that's going to enable that for MSPs today. So definitely one of the things that I love about this community is that aspect of it. And so community-led growth is one of the things that I talk about all the time, and everybody here knows it. And so I'm happy to get to do that there, and with MSP Geek and with CyberDrain as well.
First person I met in this community was Kyle Spooner. So I have some stories. And then last but definitely not least, Desraie. How are you?
Woo! Yay! I'm wearing a Calgary Flames ugly sweater because isn't it just ugly because it's the Flames? I'm just joking. We love the Flames. Yay! Hi. You know what? I thought Ashley said you said really something cool that I want to highlight there because it's really cool. In one of my very first interview that got me into the channel in the first place, Dan Wensley interviewed me, and he said in that interview, "Does this channel, there's only a handful of people you need to know. And if you meet those people and they like you and you do a good job, you're guaranteed yourself a job moving forward. So I worked for Colin, I worked for Dan, I've worked for Rob. We've all worked for all of these people. We've all worked together. And then we do these cool project works together outside of that, where we bring each other together and we support each other. So I think it's really, really cool. Myself, for anyone who doesn't know me, I've been in the channel for about 8 or 9 years, something like that. I'm currently channel chief for Apartio Technologies, which is a really exciting position for me. I've been working with a lot of the newer vendors that are looking to come into the North American market, and how do they do that? I also started this summer, I got the lovely opportunity of getting laid off. Have you guys ever done that before? Get laid off? Weird,
Oh.
weird when it happens, right? Never, ever. I got laid off, and so I was looking for project work, and I did one of those posts that you do and talk about community and say, hey, does anyone have a project for me? And Kathleen Martin, love her to death, she brought me on as co-host for the Channel CRO podcast. So I've had amazing opportunities. We've interviewed, I think it was like 50 CROs about marketing and sales and how those things come into alignment. And it's a lot of really cool information and conversation. And so I'm super excited to be here with all of these amazing, fantastic people and just discuss what we saw, what we see, and whether biggest tip of the year, don't eat yellow snow. That's all I got, really. You can pretty much mic drop now.
I'm in Delaware right now. We will almost certainly not get any snow this year, and that makes me sad, but it is what it is. So I guess that leads us right into the topic. What happened this year? Mary, what was one thing or multiple things, whatever, doesn't matter to me, that stood out to you about 2023? Whether that was an event you attended, anything. I don't even want to provide any like construction. Just take that in whichever direction you'd like.
Well, I think Des hit it on the head. We've seen lots of layoffs, over 2023. I was a victim of a layoff. I would say victim. I mean, it just happened, right? Like you're always looking forward, no time to look back, and just thinking about how the channel as a whole and as a community, just watching, especially in 2023, like I saw Des's post about, hey, this has happened to me, but I've got a ton of value. And of course you got scooped up, right? So I think that the overall arching thing I've seen in this channel since I've been here is just the sense of community. And that, if you provide value, you do the right thing, you put your shopping cart away when you're in the grocery store, all of those things lead to great opportunities. So I think that would be probably the biggest, like, overarching thing. And then amongst vendors, I think just looking a lot of automation. Like, every time you go by a booth or see a new vendor, it's all about how can we make MSPs' lives easier through automation and efficiency. So I would say that's kind of the biggest trends I've seen. I guess to throw the last one in, which, I mean, it's going to be a continuing trend forever, right, is AI. How are people using AI and the polarizing opinions about it? Like, oh, it's going to take my job. And I'm like, yeah, but when I have writer's block, it's like a springboard to help me get started. So I just think just interesting ways to see how people view things and changes in the channel and how we use those tools to be helpful, to help everybody. I think those are the biggest things I've seen in 2023.
There's definitely has been a lot of shifts in this channel, and not just on the vendor side too. There's a lot of MSPs merging together, selling their businesses off, consolidating, shifting their focus and their go-to-market strategies. There's a lot of that. And I think the channel has always been one that's been a regenerative one, where there's highs and there's lows, and there's always consistency, where there will always be a new problem to solve, and there will always be a new tool to solve that problem. And it's finding the ones that can simplify and automate for you, but also finding ones that are going to partner with you. And as somebody who also got laid off, I think when I was looking to find the next position, I was really looking for a company that was valuing the people, but also the partners, because there's many companies out there that are really focused around sales, profit. They're selling to an MSP, they're selling to a market that they, one, probably don't really understand, and two, they just they don't have the right community and the right approach to be able to communicate with them, so they're not successful in that. And you can tell immediately from just hearing feedback, right, from partners, which vendor is like that and which isn't. And so that was a huge focus for me. And I think it's a huge focus for the working climate right now, right? Like we're focusing around finding the right fit and a company that they feel like they can have some longevity to with the amount of chaos that's been happening the past couple of months, year, I don't know, 2 years. How long has since COVID? I don't know, but
It's a blur.
yeah.
I am so excited for what I think is going to happen and how this year is shaped up. And yeah, there's been a lot of crap, let's face it, it has been. But I think one of my more exciting conversations is, it's coming out of COVID, it's coming out of that lockdown, it's coming out of the freeze and the halt of like, of no one knowing what they were going to do. And now we have all these businesses that were building their businesses. I'm going to talk about vendors specifically, just because I'm doing more fractional work, I'm talking with new vendors that aren't even necessarily new. They've been around for 5 years, but they haven't had a North American strategy because they couldn't do it because no one knew what was going to happen, or because they were stuck in New Zealand, like the company I'm working with. You're stuck in New Zealand. How are you going to build a North American sales strategy when you can't even leave your country? I've been talking to businesses in Europe, same thing. They're like, we want to work in North America. The MSP market is ripe for product. And then I look at that and I look at these MSPs and I look at the number of tools that are valuable to their businesses that can help with the automation, that can help them save time here and there and all of those things. And I think it's going to be really cool to watch not just the who can spend all the money to pay to play, but the businesses that the technology comes out there that fit a problem and a need for the MSPs. And I am really excited to see which one of those companies are able to get that message across and be able to build that brand. And I'm hoping that the whole pay to play doesn't hurt too many businesses, because it does cost a lot of money to go to market in North America.
Yeah, it's interesting. Your point is so similar to like the concept where like tying that back into the automation, where it's like you're seeing a lot of MSPs that are opting to have in-house development resources, right? And so focusing a little bit more on building themselves. And so a lot of these products that would have been like commoditized as like a single use case are now struggling to try and broaden that value, because people are saying, well, I could use you, but now I've got this resource and they say that they can build this better for themselves or for us. And so it's almost like we're seeing that reversion back to in-house, but with the support of more modern web technologies at their disposal. So I always kind of correlate to a pendulum swing, but I think that like automation and the enablement of it is allowing a lot more of that like tool sprawl to become more of something that people think that they can change or think that they can like maybe get a handle on.
Is that
A dinosaur decided I needed some ketchup. Just
Are those ketchup chips?
Never a dull moment in the Des household. Never a dull moment.
that doesn't happen here in America? I guess it's just a Canada thing, huh?
I think so. I think so.
Speaking of
Blame
Canada,
Canada.
does everybody, what's your, I know everyone else's Canadian connection. What's yours, Connor?
My Canadian connection?
Yeah, everyone else here has one.
I don't really have one. I went to Canada one time. I guess I have a funny story. I went to Canada one time. It was with my family growing up. We like took a camper because I went like camping with my family growing up, and I think I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I'm with my two brothers and my mom and my dad, and we're crossing through the border police, and they ask my dad two questions, and they say, "Are these kids yours?" Pointing to us. And my dad, for whatever reason, was like just stumbled. Yeah, they're mine. And my mom was like smacking. My mom was like, "What are you? Of course, those are our kids. Like, what are you doing?" Like, we almost didn't get through border police because my dad couldn't explain to the police that yes, we were his children, even though we look exactly like him and we all had red hair. And the second thing was like, "All right, do you have any guns on board?" And we had just went to like an American Civil War like reenactment like fort thing, so we had those like cap guns. And my dad goes, yeah, we have guns." And my mom was like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, we're not going to get into the country. We're not going to be able to go into Canada." And we had to all get out of the car. They had to search it. They had to search the camper, and my dad was like, no, I was talking about these little cap guns right here that my kids have. And we were like 8 years old at the time. We put on the little Civil War reenactment hats too, and that was a good time. And then my dad got his mountain bike stolen in Canada, off the back of our RV. And so that's my Canadian connection. I don't know.
It's a good one.
That's pretty much everyone's story. Like that's just that's entirely the entire every person's story of Canada.
Claim to have guns at border police at the border. Yeah.
And then somebody says, I'm sorry.
I didn't get my complimentary maple syrup, and I was really bummed out. Just saying.
Oh, I'll ship you some. I'm on it.
I was watching this YouTube video about the biggest maple syrup heist in history, and apparently it made like Canadian news or something like years back. And I was like, oh, that's like such a Canadian thing. And then like I watched it, and it was like $40 million worth of maple syrup got stolen. I was like, oh wow, I was like, that's actually a lot of money. So I don't know, another Canadian connection.
Okay, so I have a point. Just something after everybody made their points about, you know, the trends of 2023 and everything. And I don't think I said this. I'm the director of partner experience at Finn, so I help take care of the partners once they join. But what I've noticed with all of this automation and all of these tools is we really have to humanize work again. With 2020, we all went into these little caves and we were all people on screen. We all had this, well, some had good lighting, some didn't, but we were all the same height. Like everybody was exactly the same. And then I felt like as we come out of that and everything, people are really craving like interaction. And I know from the first few shows that, you know, were now public again, it's like, it was like just droves of people going to them. And I think that in business too, I've always prided myself on relationships, and that's why I know all of you lovely people. But those relationships are like priceless, and it doesn't matter what automation you have or what tools you have, but if you need help, where do you go? You know, if you need support, do you have a person to talk to? I think that's one thing that we have to make a really conscious effort in 2023, 2024 to really make sure we have in our businesses, is that we take care of people. And that's what we're here to do. So that's just one call out, you know, after everybody talks about automation and that all sounds very robotic, and, you know, everybody's little mascots are robots and things like that. But like, are we remembering the people and the heart of people?
Yeah, and automation only goes so far, right? Like there needs to be a training on it. Like you need to have an onboarding with any product, right? Like you need to be taught how to use something properly. And I think in a lot of companies, there are partners that have tools that they're not fully utilizing, or they don't have the right onboarding process to be able to say, like, here's how you efficiently use this, and here's how you can win with this product. There's the selling point. There's the, like, you go to a show, you're sold on it, it's exactly what you need. And then you get to the product and you have no idea what to do with it. And so it could be automated until the day it dies, but until you fully know how to utilize it, having that experience with a person and understanding the tool set, and companies to give that to their partners to say, here's all these free trainings you could have, but like, let's also book some time and let's walk through this. That's really important to the success of your partners.
I'm gonna pull that out, like with exactly both of what you were saying, just to pull it further. The whole idea of community and relationships, I think, are so huge, and it goes right back into the peer groups and the events that are doing a lot more of the networking and those conversations. Why those are so powerful. Like you said, Andrea, automation isn't everything. It's not going to be everything. It's going to solve a lot of problems. There's huge amounts of there's companies that are coming out that are helping with those automation and really solving, but I don't use everything on my phone. I have no idea what I'm missing on my phone. But the relationships and the peer groups and those kind of conversations of the being able to ask for help, or being in a room and talking to a bunch of people and learning the questions that you didn't even know that you had a problem to ask about in the first place, and having the answer in front of you because somebody else already realized that they should ask that question. In 2024, I think those relationships and that community and those networks, especially as we see there's an older generation of MSPs that are starting to sell. We talked about this, starting to sell and starting to decide that they don't want to be in business anymore. So you have this younger generation who are going to be picking up those businesses. So I think that is going to be a huge thing that we see. And I think it's because of how the last 3 years of our lives have been laid out with everything that you guys just said, been shut down, all of that kind of stuff.
You find yourself having to remind people that reach out that like you're a real human. Like I can think of several times this year where it's partner or a prospect reaches out and then you're like reading, and every company has that Slack channel where it's like, get a load of what this person just said to me. And it's like, do you not know that like a real human's over here? Let's like, you don't have to treat me like crap. Like nobody's out here to screw you. We're all here to like try to make everyone's life easier. And you're like, yeah, there's no reason to talk to anyone like this. How can I help you today? I find myself having to remind people of that all the time.
I feel like trust too is kind of a trend that happened this year. There was a lot of distrust in our community and with vendors, and one, trusting that the product is going to work, but also trusting that the company is going to stay and that they're not going to get bought out by somebody else, or they're not going to sell eventually and like discontinue their services, right? That the people that you're buying from are the ones that are going to stay, right? So I think we're probably at the downtick of that. And a lot of trust is really just by building it. You have to create that network with your partners for them to trust you by your actions and how you handle situations. And when you say something, they know that you mean it. But I definitely feel like that was an overarching trend of this year of, there's not a lot of trust happening between, the people that we provide services to and the people that sell them.
Brings up a good reason to have a community.
Yes.
Like Ashley mentioned, you build a lot of trust when people can just put you on blast or ask you questions and come to your defense. And I find that most often it's there'll be a bad apple or two that'll try and unintentionally, I guess, be a little disrespectful in the way they try to state that they have an issue with your platform. And then you'll have your community like jump down like their throats, like, whoa, pal. It's like, you don't need to be doing all this. It's like, these are great people. Go check yourself. And I'll sit in the back and I'm like, oh yeah, go get them. So I won't dive in, but I'll let other people do that.
Yeah, they're like advocates.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said just to have a conversation, because some people behind a keyboard, will type out what they're feeling, and the person reading it is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they said all this, when in fact, if they had said it, over the phone or in a video call, it wouldn't have had the intention as the reader read it. So I think a lot of like conversations can solve a lot.
Oh yeah. Ashley, I don't know what stood out to you in 2023, but I have a question because it all blends together. But did the real Ashley Cooper thing, was that this year or was that last year?
That was actually 2021. That was November 2021. Yeah.
Old news. Hashtag old news.
So it was funny until the beginning of this year, and now we can put it.
Now it's not funny?
No, well, now it's just true. Like, well, it's really funny. I kind of took on the persona a little bit because exactly what Mary and Andrea were just saying, and like kind of like taking on to like what Des was saying too, what we're all saying, is like, it's not just one or the other, right? It's humanistic. And it's like, this is a conversation in marketing operations, and in like demand gen and stuff like that as well. And in B2C especially, we're seeing a lot of this where it's like the humanistic side of engagement, and especially in account-based marketing for anybody who handles big enough accounts to like understand what that looks like. You're seeing that shift more into the broader stream because we recognize that social proof is a big thing. Like heck, like you can have a quote that says that a product hasn't annoyed you, and then that can bring people to your product. It's what are the people who use this saying? What are the other people like? They're looking for somebody else to say, I made the right decision in what I chose, and here's the path that I followed. And they go to communities and they're looking for things to find out how to do that. And so one of the main problems that we've always had, like big fancy companies will like have like a lot of data, they can figure out crazy ways to do this. One example was like a hotel that had somebody staying with them, and they knew that they were there to go see a show. And when they got back from that show, they had an interaction with the person at the front desk, and they had went out and got them like a CD of that person and said, thank you for staying at our hotel, and left that as a gift, right? It's very human. It was relatable to their situation. We can do things like that in today. We can do things like that today, even if it's as simple as, and these guys know, hey, like, congrats on being part of this list. Having Google alerts, like, that's not new, but like we can integrate that relationship stuff into our automation and into our daily tasks. And so I think that for one of the things with 2023 we saw is like the rise of AI, and it was like, oh, AI is going to solve all our problems, it's going to do all of our work. And I think Mary alluded to it right at the very beginning. I think we're going to shift more into, it helps us be more efficient with this specific task, and I can focus more of my time on this, same way that automation can. When you integrate the two into your own strategic plans, you can figure out, okay, well, if I want to send something out to my customers, or if I want to email my customers after an event, I can understand what types of things I would want to say to them, and I can track those things beforehand so that I can easily segment my list and have 2 or 3 different audiences and make it look extremely hyper personalized or humanized, right? You can incorporate product adoption metrics into those things. So I think it's going to be more about how we hone these tools. Automation, fancy hype word, AI, fancy hype word. Community is really what grounds people to the need of understanding something that isn't well understood. They seek out understanding. They seek out like-minded people. They go to Discord. So that's why you're seeing a lot of companies building out their own product-centric communities too, is because it's like, I could be sleeping and I could be having one customer helping out my other customer. Why wouldn't I want them to do that? Right? Not to say that that's like you rest on your laurels because of that, but you can engage those people. And open source software does it all the time. Like, how many people contribute to SIP for no reason other than they want to see that succeed, right? And so you can take success from the open source mentality, from the community-led growth mentality, that you might not have been able to do because it took too much effort, and now apply your technology in AI and automation to help you enable you do that better.
Building brand advocates is not something that's as new. It's a lot of companies try to do it right, but a lot of them don't do it right. And
it's technology.
yeah. And I think for next year specifically, that's going to be a huge focus for a lot of companies, is building brand advocates within their partners. And how do they do that? And at my time at Datto, I think they were the epitome, and Rob Ray specifically was the epitome of building brand advocates with their partners and creating relationships that are, one, authentic, but 2, are helpful. And communities and companies creating their own communities are not focused around selling. They're not focused around pushing, their products, or having sales reps in there hounding you on creating, a deal. They're not focused around that. They're focused around partners and peers helping each other out and answering questions and feeling valued and feeling like their voice is heard, providing feedback on roadmaps. Things like that are really important for you to create that kind of advocacy with your partners.
And getting that motivation up too. Like, intrinsic motivation goes so far, but so does the extrinsic. Like, the amount of people that I got to get certified with Roost simply by like giving them a badge in Discord is like amazing. Like, I was expecting it, but it's still amazing. Like,
we all still want those shiny things.
Yeah.
There's an interesting.
Go ahead.
Connor. So I just want to talk to the question that came up in the chat. There's a kind of back and forth conversation going, if you guys are kind of following it. But one of the questions about new tools coming out to solve issues. And I just wanted to point out there, I wanted to stop on that because I do think that that's going to be a big part of 2024. There are so many vendors in this space that we don't know about, that you don't know about, unless you're like literally in it and like looking up vendors around. There's so many tools that can be used to solve problems that MSPs don't even necessarily know. Like we could talk about the peer groups. You don't even know that there might be a problem until you realize that someone had solved it, and then they don't even deal with that anymore. And you have 10 steps that you do every time that problem comes up, that you just naturally do those 10 steps, because that's just sometimes how we are. There is so many tools. I've been talking to, like, every week I talk to 2 to 3 new vendors a week, and they all have, honestly, some of these tools are so far above my head because I don't come from a technical background. I'm not an MSP. I've never worked in an MSP, but they're tools that are being used by MSPs, and they're being used heavily in Australia, New Zealand, anywhere, but
Mhm.
their North America plan hasn't worked as well for a lot of the reasons that even Andrea was just saying, or because they haven't had the budget. A vendor going to the market in North America can cost what, 1, 2, 300, 500, $1 million easily, just to do your sale, like go to market strategy that works the way the MSPs want us to work. And then I know that there's some statistics, I don't know exactly where this came from, that only 30% of MSPs go to events in the first place. So I'm always curious, and maybe this is just an interesting topic, where else are the MSPs learning about the vendors? Like, if you're not attending an event and you're not doing this, how are we answering the question, what vendors there can solve issues for the MSPs that don't have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to spend on it?
Reddit.
Reddit is a big one. I think Kelvin, one of my co-moderators on Reddit, he could probably say exactly how many people we have active in there now, but it's insane. Like, I think was commenting about how we posted about Rejection Con, and it like massively exponentially like raised the Rejection Con awareness. So Reddit's huge. Specialized communities, either like in real-time chat or on Facebook. I really love, and I would love to dig in for a long time, super analyze the difference between people who are real-time chat like Discord, Slack versus Facebook, because in my mind, I'm a very old school community person. Like, I was sitting in chat rooms back when I was in like grade 9 and 10 until like 3 a.m. But like, it was the same almost not fight, but like dynamic between forum posters and IRC users. And so I think that we're seeing that shift where people who are like forum people are now like more Facebook people. And people can say that it's a like a generational thing, like more of the Gen X and boomers are on Facebook, but I see a lot of young people too. So I really do think that it's that communication style, and which is what it always comes back to, right? Like Tech Degenerates has their monthly calls, right? And so it's like that's face-to-face, real-time chat, but real-time voice and communication is different than the typing people, than the ones who want to spend a lot of time thinking about stuff. But it's really interesting. Where are the rest of them? Where are the people who don't think about community, or who don't go to events, or who aren't like tech savvy online looking at Reddit? Like, you might see them like differently and like ask. I'm sure like you guys have all been to Askies. I find that they bring in a totally different crowd as well, like than you would ever see anywhere. So I don't know, where are those other people? That's something that I've always wanted to dig into more.
If I had to guess, just shopping at the one-stop shop vendors in the industry, like the Kaseya's, ConnectWise, Datos, and Enables of the world, and it's probably true. They're probably like, oh, well, I need X, Y, and Z. I'll just go see what they sell because I already work with them.
Yeah.
Somebody called it the devil you know, and it's like, I don't want to have to go research. I'll just take their word for it.
Or they just have a really, really good a disty account manager or success manager who just gets them everything they need and brings and then
Or they struggle.
Or they struggle.
Or they try to home roll it. They'll just, oh, I can build that. I've had so many people say all of that.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. And that's just, I think that's the evolution of an MSP, you know, where they are in their journey. Talk a lot about, and Ashley can talk to you for days about partner and customer journeys. But you know, when they begin, it's trying to figure out what's going to be best for them. What's the most cost best cost, I don't know, well, you know what I'm trying to say. What's going to save them the most amount of money? And then they're introduced to this through a friend or somebody else in the industry, or maybe they attend like a Microsoft user group somewhere because they buy from Microsoft or they buy from Dell, and then they meet this vendor and they meet this person, and it's all through connections. And that's, I think, a theme throughout this whole entire thing is really building the connections with your peers, because that's where a lot of feedback is coming from. And we've seen an uptick in, like platforms like Channel Program, and some other platforms as well, creating feedback modules publicly so you can see reviews on companies from other vendors, or from other MSPs. And I think that will only gain more popularity, because if you think about it, when you go to look for a restaurant or a doctor or anything, a handyman, you're looking up the reviews and you're checking out the pictures of the food and you're doing all that stuff. And so a one-stop shop for that kind of information where you can put to test the this vendor versus this, and what are the up points and the down points, and what are some pain points. You always get feedback that can skew, just like on Yelp, you get crazy people on there. But I think really it's an open, honest feedback from people using the product, which is something I don't think we have right now. We have vendors doing testimonials, putting that on their website, and that's great. Getting video testimonials, I think those are super helpful. But really hearing in real time without provoking or without asking from a vendor, feedback is something that you cannot put a price tag on. You really can't.
Neither is being there when it happens so that you
Yeah,
can
that's
see it
also
and
great.
share it, and like having those listening posts kind of just plugged in everywhere to know when you're being talked about and taking that back and doing something with it.
To any vendor watching, IFTTT, set up keyword alerts on Reddit, Slack, Discord, and anywhere else you'd like to monitor, and you get a little notification on your phone. You just show up.
It seems dangerous to me.
Oh, my phone never stops. Yeah, it's definitely not recommended for mental health for sure. But
We have a joke about trying to guess who has what keywords. Like, this
oh
person shows
yeah,
up every time this is mentioned. That's weird.
I love those every time in the MSP Geek Slack. It's like let's see who we can bother with, and then you just start putting like
SBS.
yeah. What do y'all think we'll see moving into 2024? What are we going to get more of the same? Are we going to get anything different? It's a wide topic, but we could take it anywhere we want.
I'm really curious about headcount and dollar bills, y'all, pretty much on like the budgets and how they're going to be spent, and where the people who make the money decisions are going to choose to spend. Because I've seen in the last 6 weeks, a lot of the conversations I'm having, everything's kind of on hold, and it feels like the threat that we had last year at the end of the year, where everyone's like, I remember watching different presentations on stage throughout that year where the presentations were strictly about how the economy were going to crash and how bad everything was going to get. And even though like we're in a good place and things seem to be like, yes, I understand some people aren't and all of those things, but we're generally we didn't hit that bad for where we are. And so all the investors though feel like they're just sitting, and these companies and the people who make the decisions about things like headcount and where the money is going to go are kind of like just sitting and waiting on it. And so I think that is going to be one of the most interesting things coming in Q1, is to see where money is actually spent.
I would love to see that. Sorry, you go ahead.
I was going to say, not from an MSP like spending money and growing headcount or small businesses doing that. I see the same exact thing happening in the investment world. So all the way from the top private equity dollars to VC dollars to angel investors. They sat on the sidelines for the large majority of the end of 21 up until very recently, because the economy, at least in America, was really uncertain and nobody knew what was going to happen. And now I see that changing. I see a lot of new investment being made. I see a lot of people getting interested in the MSP community. What I think will happen in 2024 with that is a lot of companies who are not in the MSP channel or in channel at all are wising up to the fact that it's not a light switch. That's like, you have to build community roots. You have to be a part of the conversation. You have to get trust. Don't aim to sell, aim to make a set of friends that you could lean on for realistic feedback. The best thing that ever happened to Finn when I was starting it was people telling me when we were full of shit. And when we weren't, it's like it cuts both ways. It's like, oh, I'm wrong. Tell me why. Oh, I'm right. It's like, I didn't know that. Like, tell me more. And it was really helpful.
To carry on your light switch analogy, thinking about what goes into a solution, it's like a light switch didn't begin as a light switch, right? Like first you had to build a fire, first you had to like make your lantern, first you had to like figure out electricity, right? Like then you had to figure out how to turn it on with the flick of a switch, and it's like that's that simple, a flick of a switch, right? And so I think that we're going to see a lot more of us realizing that we're building our switches here. I hope, and I think that we'll see some companies who have the right innovative people in the right positions to think, hey, more efficiency doesn't have to mean just do more work. I hope that we can start seeing more 4-day work week companies being like, hey, we can, because we're producing the same amount. Our people are rejuvenated, they're outputting more within their amount of time, and we're using AI and automation to help us do the best thing for our customers, and we're doing that in less time. And so that's what I hope that we see in 2024 is more people realizing those benefits and drawing in those conclusions.
I'm submitting a talk on company culture at GeekCon, which is one of the things I was really appreciative of I guess 2023 was it goes back to a statement I tell MSPs all the time. If you don't tell vendors what you need, they'll sell you what they have. The same thing goes for community and education. If you show up to a conference and you don't know what you need, whatever the conference is selling is what you're going to get. But then when you go to like GeekCon and Write a Boom, and I'm not aware of any other like community-led shows, it's all about legitimate education that's not backed by vendors. And that was one of my pieces of advice to Kyle, actually, in the whole MSP GeekCon group, to go back to what Desraie said, or Desraie, sorry. It was, yeah, you can increase the price, but then the only people that lose out are the attendees, because then the only vendors that show up are the vendors with PE dollars. Yeah, the money.
Exactly.
And think of the biggest vendors in the space. It's like, do you want an entire conference with just them? It's like, sure.
And if you
can
charge them less, then you can also tell them to focus on different things and not be so grumpy about the spend.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm not telling you I know how to balance that equation, but if you make it too expensive, only the wrong people show up. If you don't make it expensive enough, then everyone shows up, and then everything becomes noise. So it's like, congrats, you have a very difficult problem to solve, and I'm not going to go help you solve it. That's all you guys.
That was my biggest accomplishment of 2023. Speaking on that stage, I blocked it out.
How was Jason's prep? How did that go? What did that look like?
Oh, when he brought me into the room the night before, it was like whiskey and go again, made me pretend like all the people were in there. It was embarrassing, but it worked.
I was in the presentation. It was great.
It got cut down about 15 minutes. Like I did 45 minutes worth of talking in 30. So I must have just spoke really, really fast, but.
Probably. My dad is a pastor, and he always told me the two things you should only remember when doing public speaking is never look directly at somebody, look just above their head, and they believe it's the same thing, but you feel very different. And the second is always talk slower than you think you should. And when you watch it back, although I can't stand to hear myself talk, I'll never watch or listen to any recording of myself ever. You're like, damn, I'm actually talking real fast. But then when you're going through it, you're like, I'm dragging, and oh my goodness, I can't talk. It's a weird mental block.
Well, I was going to say my thoughts for 2024 is looking at all the AI and the tickets they're solving. And it's like, are we going to need level 1 technicians anymore? Or do they all need to step up their game? Like if you want to be involved, like level 1 is like, it's kind of like kindergarten. You need to start at 2nd grade. Like, I feel like people reaching out for opportunities to educate themselves and certifications and things like that. Like, if you want to be in this game, you have to have a certain attitude. You have to have a certain drive. You have to have a need to help people. This is not like, I'm going to sit in a chair and I want to be a level 1 forever. Like, if you want to be a level 1 forever, I don't want you working for me. Like, we need ambition. We need drive and things like that. I just see with all of these tools and everything that are out there is that level 1 tech job is going to be consumed by automation. and let's get people leveled up so that they can help in places where automation can't.
Yeah, the definition will shift for sure. Like I said it in chat, like I think that they're going to have a lot more of that time, right? Like they're still going to need monitoring. Like automation still needs like an ownership involved with it, and like the tasks themselves will need that monitoring. But now they might need to be more of like the steward of those processes rather than the executor.
At a Portio, one of our partners, their boss was like, "Hey, we're going to cancel a Portio," and the technicians threw a fit and said that they would quit because it takes out so much of the level 1 work. They're like, we don't have to read emails. It's done for us. We don't have to like go through all this data to find the information we need. 100% agree with you. It's going to be, the positions will shift and move, but that level 1 or level 0 position, I agree that it'll definitely, technology will come out that, but it'll give people like more opportunity or more project work or more growth within the business, working in the business.
Well, I could go. I did talk a little bit about 2020. What year are we in? 2024. But
The life of a mother of a young child.
yeah. Sickness, and you don't know what day or month or year it is. I talked a little bit about building advocates. I definitely think that that's going to be huge next year, and the review process, making it more public. But I also think the way that vendors and MSPs market is going to have to change. Like the standard events, we talked about this earlier, but the standard events that everyone goes to, they've changed. They're not fun anymore. They're not engaging anymore. Things need to change, and the way that vendors go to market also has to change. And you'll see a lot of vendors probably pulling back from some of the events that you normally maybe see them go to, and spending their money more on building smaller group events, community type events, and then in events like Rejection Con or MSP Geek Con, where there's no one vendor involved, but it's a community of people coming together. That's why HTG was always so great back in the day, because it was a vendor, an overarching vendor, right? But it's like-minded people coming together and creating something where that you can come to and know that you're going to get something out of it, whether it be a connection, whether it be meeting, an account manager, or meeting a company who you thought you had their tool, but you weren't sure how it worked. All that stuff has to change next year. And I think it will. A lot of vendors that I've talked to are sick of paying so much money for the same event. And these same events are getting stale. So I think you'll see a lot of shift in that area next year.
I think peer groups are real powerful.
They are.
We did Evolve, which was HTT and now is Evolve, all this year, and the best presentations we ever gave had nothing to do with our company. We just taught MSPs the changing landscape of marketing and how business ownership, according to Microsoft, and this I think it was Microsoft and Google did like release these reports. It was like, how is business ownership going to change? Like, what generation of people is going to own businesses in the next 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10 years? And the overwhelming consensus was that Gen Z and my generation, which I'm technically a millennial, will continue to own more and more businesses, and also want to own businesses more than all of the previous generations. And then our entire presentation, Gen A, Jamie's letting me know in the background here, my marketing manager.
Fact checker.
Yeah, fact checker. Gen Z and Gen A. And the entire presentation was, what are you doing right now, everyone in this room, to actually talk to those people? Do you know where they talk? Do you know where they look for information? The answer was obviously no. It's like, great, because they're online, they're in these places online, they're asking these type of questions, and this is how you can put yourself in a place to, get rewarded, like be the expert in their area, which was really interesting. It's like, yeah, all the dynamics is going to change.
I think that brings up an amazing point of one of the shifts that I think that I definitely have seen in the last year or two, especially in the last 10 years ago, there's still literal booth babes, but it being exclusive or inclusive, I think that is going to be one of the big shifts that we're going to see. It's of course, the women in technology conversation huge. That I think is going to be shifting to more of the being people wow, I can't say it anymore. People inclusive, and making sure that everyone feels like they have a place, and that we are taking people who maybe are in those minority positions and making it so they have more opportunity. They're being seen, they're getting promoted, they're getting raises. All of that conversation, I think, is going to be really powerful next year.
I think that these big cons that people go to that are so big, and you might have Shaq there, you might have Snoop, all of those, you get lost. And these smaller community events where people. I told Connor this was it
CanelCon, I think it was.
Yeah. CanelCon, which was awesome. But I got in the elevator to go to the closing party or one of the celebrations, and this huge, tall, giant man got in with me, and we both had the badge on. He's like, "Excuse me, are you going to the party?" And I'm like, "I am." He's like, "I don't talk really good with people. Can I follow you?" And I was like, "Of course you can." He would benefit so much than being lost in 2,000 people in a room with 200 people, and being able to make those personal connections. And my teacher validating moment was after about 45 minutes or an hour, he was like, "I think I'm okay now." And I'm like, "Good for you. Go make friends." I sent him off on the playground. But I do think just those peer groups, community groups, one thing that, Connor told me when we have new partners join Finn, invite them to the Finn Slack channel where they can just talk to each other. We're in there to answer questions, but it's peer to peer. It's just giving a place for connection. Somebody asked me, I can't believe I can't remember his name. He's an editor of a magazine. Anyway, he said, "Aren't you scared they're going to talk bad about you or bash you?" And I'm like, "No, because if they are, our product has a problem. We listen to people and we need the feedback, good or bad." So I think just having those, and you also have advocates in the community too. So I think small communities are really going to shine in 2024.
People like the example that you gave are actually where a lot of MSP Geeks motivations were drawn from. And especially we put the channel together, for example, if we were going to IT Nation, we'll put the channel, people who are in the community will say, "Hey, we're gonna go here, here's where we're at," right? Here's come hang out. So people would be like, "Okay, well, I don't really know anybody, my company had sent me here, but I'm a part of MSP Geek and I'm in that channel, and they've said, hey, everyone here, come over here." And so now they feel like they've got somewhere to go and hang out, and they're not so insecure about wandering into this big unknown void, right? And so really, whenever I would go to an event where there's a presence for MSPB Geek, we would always try to be like, "Hey, here's where we're all hanging out." And I'm like a big sheepdog herding everybody over to that area, stay here. You can go wander away, but come back over here when you're done. This is our home base, so people know where to find us.
You have to be at the
You're
vendor
involved in one of
sponsored
those.
event. Yeah, I'm usually involved if but there's a time of night where it gets back to either Henry Tim's suite or Ray's, somebody's suite. It's right before that time. It's a giant group of people, and then right at about 2 or 3 a.m. the people that are the sane people are like, "I'm going to bed. I gotta wake up." And then there's a few of us that are like, "Well, we're having a great time. This is not over yet." It's like, dude, it's the first day. It's we can't be doing this again. We told ourselves last time we wouldn't do it, and they're like, but we were younger and unwise last time. We got to listen to ourselves now.
And Connor says, "Mary has the morning shift of the booth. I'm good."
Yeah, it's my advice to anyone who's starting a business is, if you're not a morning person, hire people that are. And I am not a morning person. It's I don't care what y'all do. Morning shifts covered. I will gladly take the evening and the night shifts. As we wrap up, do any of y'all have any closing thoughts or words of wisdom that people should take with them into 24?
Celebrate community at MSP GeekCon.
That's
actually the theme, I think. Celebrate community.
Celebrate community, yeah. We I'm working on a super secret project that's being announced at ScalePad on Thursday, involving a community and creating a community. So if you're watching this live and you want to attend Ignition, that's where it'll be announced. But if not, if you're watching this recorded, then go to scalepad.com and you'll see it.
Awesome.
And I know Andrea is an expert at community building.
Oh, Mary.
In
Thank
fact, she said, wear ugly Christmas sweaters. So just for you, I bought an ugly Christmas vest. Wait, hold on. It turns into a Christmas tree.
I love everything about that.
I'm going to lean right in with the community thing. I think it's so powerful. Personally, I had a neighbor friend who reached out the other day and was like, hey, I have a friend who's in need. And we managed to, within 48 hours, get over 20 people to gather donations and then use even the channel, like use Facebook and social media. I had people from all over the US and Canada donate a bunch of money. So we were able to get them Christmas presents and all those kind of fun things. And that's just like using community online, and the channel is even more. It's bigger. It is everything. The peer groups, the everything, everyone. I love it. I talk to MSPs and vendors more than I talk to anyone in my life. I love you guys.
Well, and they did that because they trust you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here, Andrea. It's a pleasure talking to you. I would say there are two quotes that I've said all year long that I'll leave people with. One is along the lines of, are you afraid people are going to talk about you together in your own communities? And I tell everyone I work with, and I tell everyone if they ever listen to me, which I don't think anyone should listen to me publicly. We want the good feedback. We need the bad feedback. You only get better by addressing the bad shit that you're doing, unaware or aware of it. You have to operate like that, especially in this community where if you're not seeing, I'll put it this way, if you're not seeing how people are talking about you, they're just talking about you without you in their room. It's like, it still happens. They're still going to talk about you. They're still going to say all the things you don't want to hear. They're just not going to let you hear it. And so you need to hear the bad feedback. And the second is, if you can't figure out what you need, vendors will sell you what they have. So most of the conversations I had all of this year were all around what should we do with cybersecurity, or how should an MSP approach it? And it should always be from a place of knowledge. Is you need to know what you need, because if not, you'll just get sold what somebody has. And that's not a great way to create better services for you and your clients. It's a great way to have expectations that never end up getting met and create friction. That's not what any of us want. So awesome. Well, thank you all. Andrea's not here, but thank you all for joining. It was a blast chatting with you. I'm sure we will have all of you on our podcast at some point to talk about various stuff. The dinosaur that gave you ketchup, and why was it ketchup? I don't know. Do you got like chicken nuggets down there or something? I don't know. I wasn't offered any, and I love myself some chicken nuggets, so I'm upset. But
Send him some ketchup chips.
Ketchup chips.
There we go. Ketchup chips it is. I'm on it. Maple syrup, ketchup chips. I gotcha.
just not Canadian bacon. I will not. It's just ham. It's just ham, and that upsets me. Okay. So everyone, thanks for joining. If you were watching, if you were listening, thank you so much for being here. I hope your 2023 was great. And I hope your 2024 is even better. If it's possible, we should try to make it happen. But we'll see you all next time.